The Temple in Jerusalem. Part 3. This was the temple that was still standing in the days of Jesus. Let us see what we can learn from the third part. God's house is completed and dedicated. Then Tattenai, the governor of the province beyond the river, Shethar-bozenai, and their colleagues carried out the order of King Darius with all diligence. So the elders of the Jews built and prospered because of the prophesying of the prophet Haggai and Zechariah, Iddo's son. They finished building by the command of Israel's God and of Cyrus, Darius, and King Artaxerxes of Persia. This house was completed on the 3rd day of the month of Adar, in the 6th year of the rule of King Darius. Then the Israelites, the priests, and the Levites, and the rest of the returned exiles joyfully celebrated the dedication of this house of God. At the dedication of this house of God, they offered 100 bulls, 200 rams, 400 lambs, and as a purification offering for all Israel, 12 male goats, according to the number of the tribes of Israel. They set the priests in their divisions and the Levites in their sections for the service of God in Jerusalem, as it is written in the scroll from Moses. On the 14th day of the first month, the returned exiles celebrated the Passover. All of the priests and the Levites had purified themselves, all of them were clean. They slaughtered the Passover animals for all the returned exiles, their fellow priests, and themselves. The Israelites who had returned from exile, together with all those who had joined them by separating themselves from the pollutions of the nations of the land to worship the Lord, the God of Israel, ate the Passover meal. They also joyfully celebrated the festival of unleavened bread for 7 days, because the Lord had made them joyful by changing the attitude of the king of Assyria toward them so that he assisted them in the work on the house of God, the God of Israel. Ezra 7 Common English Bible. Introduction to Ezra 7. After this, in the rule of Persia's king Artaxerxes, Ezra son of Seraiah son of Azariah son of Hilkiah son of Shallum son of Zadok son of Ahitub son of Amariah son of Azariah son of Meraioth son of Zeriah son of Utzi son of Bukai son of Abishua son of Phinehas son of Eleazar son of Aaron the chief priest, this Ezra came up from Babylon. He was a scribe skilled in the instruction from Moses, which the Lord, the God of Israel, had given. Moreover, the king gave him everything he requested because the Lord his God's power was with him. Some of the Israelites and some of the priests and the Levites, the singers, and gatekeepers and the temple servants also came up to Jerusalem in the 7th year of King Artaxerxes. They reached Jerusalem in the 5th month, in the 7th year of the king. The journey from Babylon began on the 1st day of the 1st month, and they came to Jerusalem on the 1st day of the 5th month, for the gracious hand of his God was upon him. Ezra had determined to study and perform the Lord's instruction, and to teach law and justice in Israel. Letter from Artaxerxes. This is a copy of the letter that Artaxerxes gave to Ezra the priest and scribe, a scholar of the text of the Lord's commandments and his requirements for Israel, Artaxerxes, King of Kings, to Ezra the priest, the scribe of the instruction from the God of heaven. Peace And now I decree that any of the people of Israel or their priests or Levites in my kingdom who volunteer to go to Jerusalem with you may go. You are sent by the king and his 7 counselors to investigate Judah and Jerusalem according to the instruction from your God, which is in your hand. You should bring the silver and gold that the king and his counselors have freely offered to the God of Israel, whose dwelling is in Jerusalem, together with any of the silver and gold that you find in the entire province of Babylonia. You should also bring the spontaneous gifts of the people and the priests, given freely for God's house in Jerusalem. With this money you will be careful to buy bulls, rams, and lambs, as well as their grain offerings and their drink offerings. And you will offer them on the altar of God's house in Jerusalem. As long as it is God's will, you and your colleagues may do what you think best with the rest of the silver and gold. You will deliver the equipment that has been given to you for the service of God's house to the God of Jerusalem. If anything else is required for God's house that you are responsible to provide, you may provide it from the royal treasury. I, King Artaxerxes, decree to all of the treasurers in the province beyond the river, whatever Ezra the priest and scribe of the instruction from the God of heaven requires of you, it must be provided precisely, even up to 100 kickers of silver, 100 cores of wheat, 100 baths of wine, 100 baths of oil, and unlimited salt. Whatever the God of heaven commands will be done carefully for the house of the God of heaven, or wrath will come upon the realm of the king and his heirs. You must also know that it is illegal for you to charge tribute, custom, or dues on any of the priests and Levites, the singers, the doorkeepers, the temple servants, or other servants of this house of God. And you, Ezra, based on the divine wisdom that you have, appoint supervisors and judges to adjudicate among all the people in the province beyond the river who know the laws of your God. You will also teach those who do not know them. Let judgment be strictly carried out upon anyone who does not obey the instruction from your God and the law of your king, including death, banishment, confiscation of property, or imprisonment. Ezra prepares to leave. Bless the Lord, the God of our ancestors, who has moved the king to glorify the Lord's house in Jerusalem, and who has demonstrated his graciousness for me before the king and his counselors and all the king's mighty officers. I took courage because the Lord my God's power was with me. I gathered leaders from Israel to go up with me. Ezra 8. These are the heads of the families, and this is the genealogy of those who went up with me during the rule of King Artaxerxes, of the family of Phinehas, Gershom, of Ithamar, Daniel, of David, Hattush, Shechaniah's son, of Parosh, Zechariah, and with him were registered 150 men, of Pahat Moab, Elihonah, Zeriah's son, and with him 200 men, of Zadok, Shechaniah, Hahaziel's son, and with him 300 men, of Adin, Ebed, Jonathan's son, and with him 50 men, of Elam, Shia, Athaliah's son, and with him 70 men, of Shephisha, Zebediah, Michael's son, and with him 80 men, of Job, Obadiah, Jehiel's son, and with him 218 men, of Bani, Shelomith, Josaphiah's son, and with him 160 men, of Babai, Zechariah, Babai's son, and with him 28 men, of Azjad, Johanan, Hakkatan's son, and with him 110 men, of the last of Adonikam, namely Eliphelet, Joel, and Shemaiah, and with them 60 men, of Bigvai, Uthai, and Zachar, and with them were 70 men. Voyage to Jerusalem. I gathered them by the river that runs to Ahava, and there we camped for 3 days. As I reviewed the people and the priests, I found no Levites there. So I called for Eliezer, Ariel, Shemaiah, Elnathan, Jerub, Elnathan, Nathan, Zechariah, and Meshullam, all leaders, together with Joarib and Elnathan, who were wise. I sent them to Iddo, the leader at the place named Casiphia, telling them what to say to Iddo and his colleagues the temple servants at Casiphia, namely, to send us ministers for God's house. Because we were favored by God, they brought us Sherebiah, a skillful man of the family of Mali, Levi's son, and Israel's grandson, together with his sons and relatives, so that there were 18 in total. They also brought us Hashabiah, and with him Jeshaiah of the family of Merari, together with his relatives and their sons, so that there were 20 in total. In addition, there were 220 temple servants whom David and the princes had appointed to serve the Levites. These were all recorded by name. Then I called for a fast there at the Ahava river, so that we might submit before our God and ask of him a safe journey for ourselves, our children, and all our possessions. I had been ashamed to ask the king for a group of soldiers and cavalry to help us in facing enemies on the way, because we had told the king, "The power of God favors all who seek him, but his fierce wrath is against all who abandon him." So we fasted and prayed to our God for this, and he responded to us. The God never left Babylon, so he couldn't hear or answer their prayers. Then I selected 12 of the leading priests, Sherebiah and Hashabiah, and 10 of their relatives with them. I weighed out to them the silver and the gold and the equipment, the offering for the house of our God that the king, his counselors, his officials, and all Israel present there had offered. I weighed out into their keeping 650 kickers of silver, 100 silver containers weighing a certain number of kickers, 100 kickers of gold, 20 gold bowls worth 1,000 darics, and 2 containers of highly polished copper, which were as precious as gold. I said to them, "You are holy to the Lord, and the equipment is holy. The silver and the gold are a spontaneous gift to the Lord, the God of your ancestors. Guard them carefully until you weigh them out in Jerusalem before the officials of the priests, the Levites, and the heads of the families of Israel, within the rooms of the Lord's house." So the priests and the Levites received the silver and the gold and the utensils as they were weighed out, in order to bring them to Jerusalem, to our God's house. Then we left the Ahava river on the 12th day of the first month to go to Jerusalem. The power of our God was with us. He saved us from the power of the enemy and ambushes along the way. This ends the third part. On to the fourth.